we're keeping you from lunch, right? Well, we do have an interesting panel session here for you with three very interesting gentlemen. We have Bill from Angels Den, a London-based angel network. We have Jason Best from Crowd Capital, which you saw, and we have Maurizio Rossi from Italy, from H-Farm, who already gave an interesting presentation earlier on. Gentlemen, my first question is the million-dollar question. Crowdfunding is taking over, or has already overtaken the venture industry in terms of funding for smaller companies. In a couple of years, will VCs be out of work? How do you see this evolve in the next few years?
I don't think they'll be out of work. I think that we see one of the other hats I wear is I'm a partner at a venture capital fund in Hong Kong. And so I think that what we're seeing is pretty collaborative opportunities. I think we've seen, I guess, in 2010, VC, generally speaking, thought of crowdfunding as the barbarians at the gate. That it never would work. And I think that what we see is as investment crowdfunding moves through different countries, and those VCs and angel investors become more accustomed to understanding how it works and the fact that it's not irrational, and that it works in pretty organized fashion, that they can become collaborators. Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to this panel because I love Jason, but I think I disagree with almost everything he says, which is really cool for a panel. I think there's two things, and I think we're conflating two things as well. Are VCs getting disrupted by crowdfunding? It depends how you define a VC. I mean, VCs ain't going to get out of bed for anything less than 6 million. I come from the UK, possibly the most advanced equity crowdfunding platform around. There's been one deal for 4 million. The vast majority are at 500,000. So it's like comparing hippopotamuses and giraffes. It's not like they both exist, but VC money is right at the right time for the right company. It's not like you're ever going to compete with the crowd. And I loved Joanne's presentation earlier when she was talking about the crowd. In our experience, and we've been going 10 years and we're in 10 countries, the crowd are stupid. Really stupid. There is no wisdom of the crowd, but as a mechanism to get money on board, is very effective. So if you just want to get money on board, crowdfunding's awesome. If you want to stay in business, I'm just suggesting that 1,000 people putting in $427 is probably not going to be your best bet, because the only way forward is you need wisdom. Exactly like Joanna said, much more eloquently than I could ever do. You need mentorship if you're looking for business. The crowd cannot give you mentorship. The crowd on the whole do not give contacts, no matter how much BS the platforms give you. They're not going to do it. If you want to be in business, you need mentorship, experience, and you need contacts. Then you need the money. If you just come and look for the money, you're dumb and you will probably fail. And all of the equity crowdfunding platforms in the UK say everyone knows 80% of startups are going to fail. Do they? Really? Listen, I mean, that's not my scene. And I think VCs are not exactly doing very well at the moment. They're not making huge piles of dosh. But, it's confusing two very different things. Both of them noble beasts, but the motivation behind each one of them is completely and utterly different.
Maurizio, those are two completely different visions. What's your take?
So I can stay in the middle, okay? No, I think it's both. I like both of their vision, but it's not because each one is protecting, one or the other. It's we don't know what happens in 5 years. And the crowd is a behavior of the people. I always think like the user, it's like the data. The people use the internet, lives in the internet, we consider user, but it's more from data perspective. But the crowd, it's the behavior, of the collaboration. So we will see really the major shift, major change. One's going to be the next generation really full, because I have some experience with crowdsource, because we started in 2007 crowdsource advertising company. But still agency are around. So the crowdfunding is getting very hot. It's a matter of a community. Just what was last week was Indiegogo. So for sure, it's going to change a lot. Maybe not short terms, because the large LPs still need some management companies to drive large amount of money. But VCs are already into a process of transformation, because we have to consider the platform and the crowdsource. It's a behavior of people interacting with the platform, but also platform will have artificial intelligence on top. So what I believe we probably going to have, if I would be a VC, I would probably become more an advisor. I'm going to leverage totally the crowdfunding. But at the same time, I can drive and consult and get some LPs, because the crowdsource has always the problem of curation, which is something that I learned with 2 projects. One was into the design, another one was with advertising. And in both cases, still design studios are still around and the agencies are there. But if I go to see the agency, those one who works good are those one who are leverage the platform with the crowdsource, not the old school one. So for the VC, it's going to be a transformation over the next 5 years. Very important, in my opinion. But what happens if the crowdfunding going to take completely the place in 5 or 10 years? I cannot say now, but for sure it's going to become more, much more, especially with the next generation, the people who does co-working, co-living, co-funding, sharing,
Bill, do VC see crowdfunding initiatives as an interesting early stage vehicle? Because what we do see is that there's a lot of consolidation in the last few years between VCs and crowdfunding initiatives, and there are a lot of cross-sectoral moves. So do investors, angel investors and VCs see crowdfunding as an early stage?
I think about the only thing that equity crowdfunding has been proven to do in the UK is to validate an existing model. And so we see 110 business plans every day. We super curate, so I totally agree with Maurizio. We super curate them down, no shit. And then you're putting in experienced business people into the deals. But it's the crowdfunding side of it is an awesome way, if you're a B2C model, of actually validating that you're there. Now, my trouble with it is that because it doesn't come with what companies really need, it's not going to come with the mentorship and the contacts, then the businesses could be awesome businesses if they were properly funded, if they were funded using the right mechanism. So it's like friends and family is the easiest money to get, but it's often not the right money. Equity crowdfunding is often not the right money. It's an awesome way to get lots of money. Angel funding is good and it's bad. VC funding is going to come in at a much later stage on the whole, unless it's different here in Belgium. But I mean, seriously, in the UK, they're not going to get out of bed for 5-6 million. So it's kind of weird. So yeah, in terms of validation, my lord, it's amazing. It's even on donation platforms. We're following a lot of donation platforms that then get 100,000 people donating to them. That tells us something.
Mm-hmm. I would just say that, I think that if crowdfunding for crowdfunding for me, it doesn't mean 1,000 people always. It could be 5 people, it could be 5 angel investors that are using technology that was created to raise money online. It could be 3 corporate VCs who are able to share deals more efficiently and more effectively than they were able to before. I agree that there's always talk about smart money, and I think having people with the right connections and knowledge and experience in an early stage company is super important. I think that but if we're still sourcing that kind of talent in the same old way that we've done for 20 years, 10 years from now, then we're crazy. And I think that the technology, this white space opportunity technology creation is where I'm really excited, because the ability to leverage social media technology, let's just be super basic about it. Like, if you were able as an entrepreneur to go out and you raise money from 100 people, and you were able to then use a rudimentary tool like LinkedIn, which is a terrible tool, to figure out, who are your investors who were vice presidents of marketing or CFOs of a company or other kinds of things. It's a way for you to leverage people who might be in your crowd already to do that sort of thing. But I also agree with you that allowing just anybody to post a project on any platform and hope for the best is a terrible idea. In my opinion, having curation is an important part of any platform, whether it's light touch curation like Kickstarter does, or it's very highly curated like most of the equity crowdfunding platforms in the U.S. follow.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with him.
Okay. What you often hear is that companies that raise money through crowdfunding are given a valuation that's too high. Would you agree?
We're in 10 countries, so yep.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Thank you for inviting me here. No, I mean, absolutely, but I go back to my point about the wisdom of the crowd. The crowd often, and I don't mean to, it's difficult. VCs find it difficult to value a business, but often there's a famous company in the UK that raised 3 million on its platform. You had to click through 9 pages to find out what the valuation was. Now, 99% of people didn't do that. They just went, wow, what a cool video. I'm going to invest. They raised $3 million, and the payback period on that deal, 6 of my friends went in, investment bankers. I said, dudes, do you know what the payback period is? They're going, no, but you get a free beer. I'm going, cool. It's 107 years. 107 years before you get your money back. Seriously, you think that's a good investment? Sorry. I mean, some of the valuations are absolutely crazy, but the crowd, in a sense, you're comparing hippos and giraffes. Again, it's like the motivation of people to invest into equity crowdfunding platforms is different from the motivations of every other source of capital. So maybe, and it looks like the British experience, the valuation isn't that key until you go and raise your next round. Mm-hmm. And you're dead. And you've upset your friends and your family, and you've probably got a B2C model, so then you've monetized your database, your whole business is dead. Because, yeah.
Okay, so just a different point of view. The data that we've crunched is in the U.S. market. There's only 6 months of data available of what we call regulation crowdfunding, which is retail investor crowdfunding. We've looked at every single deal, and we've analyzed it very deeply. The valuations for early stage business in the United States is between $5 and $6 million. The average valuation for businesses that successfully raised equity crowdfunding in the U.S. so far, and only 6 months of data, so it's a tiny amount, is about $5.4 million. So I think that in that market, where we have a much more highly regulated form of regulated crowdfunding, where the platforms are almost all broker-dealers who have a fiduciary responsibility to do due diligence and to call bullshit on deals that are poorly organized, I think that kind of thing is helpful. I think the wide open space of whatever you can get past the post is a winner. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Maurizio?
But I see it's the problem with the valuation. It's part of this. In the past 10, 15 years, there's so many new businesses started from scratch and raised a lot of money. This never happened in the past. And we had the unicorn, so in 1 year, either without a business, we got a unicorn, so the year after, no more unicorn. So the valuation, it's something, it's happening now because it's something which is new. It's a challenge. It's not about crowdfunding or not crowdfunding, what is there. I see more, they use the crowdfunding in a different way. In the future, maybe this could be by also corporation. They can crowdfund, they can leverage the crowdfunding platform because they can involve maybe for some services. And people do not invest the money with the intent of an exit. but they just invested the money because they are funding a project that is paying back a revenue share. It's imagine like, I don't know, a car sharing company or service that people can buy a stake of a service, they can use it, or the future of the energy, or some of this stuff that can be really spread around. So I see now in the future different way how to see the value, because today we still investing in the company because we need to have an exit. And that's where VCs are still strong now, because they have the connections to drive an exit, but it's also a bottleneck. But when I see an example, Indiegogo or Kickstarter, they're also a marketplace. If you just change the perspective, that's the same is going to come with crowdfunding, in my opinion.
I think the revenue-based financing is a great point, and that's where I think a lot of Main Street businesses could raise capital efficiently and effectively, and pay back their, like one of the platforms in the U.S. is called Next Seed, and that model is revenue-based financing. Percentage of your top-line revenue goes back to your investors over the course of 2 to 5 years, and they're already returning capital every month, beginning in month 1 to their investors. So that kind of a thing sounds like an interesting opportunity. We'll see if it plays out and is successful over time. But I think that's a way for the vast majority of businesses, to Bill's point, are never going to go IPO. They're never going to get acquired by Facebook, and so their investors need a viable exit. And so I think revenue-based financing can be a viable exit if you have a real business.
Something completely different. Belgium is a small country, and crowdfunding is taking up rather not so well. So when you compare with the Netherlands, with Germany, with France, crowdfunding is still a relatively small phenomenon in our country. You have a lot of international experience. What are usually the reasons that you see, and what can be done about it?
I think it comes down to the culture. I mean, we've got lots of Belgian investors who are so conservative. And so they are very stuck in their ways. They will tell us, most of our investors, we've got 18,000 of them on our platform, most of them come along and go, I'm going to invest in that, and then the last thing they invest in is that. Belgians seem to know their mind. They stick at it, but they're super conservative. They strike a really big bargain. They try and look for ways not to do the deal. Whereas Dutch people, on the whole, are not conservative. I mean, there's horrible racial stereotypes, but Brexit. Europeans. But Dutch people are much more they will take more of a risk, more of a chance. They are, I mean, and it's a ridiculous thing to say. So we've got 2 offices in Germany. They hate crowdfunding. Hate it. Just hate it. The word is just a swear word. It's they just won't do it. They can't see the sense in it. Why would they want to do it? So I mean, even just across 200, 300 miles of border, it's a very different scene. So it's a cultural thing, and you have to take that into account. But does that mean that equity crowdfunding can't work in Belgium? No. You just have to approach it in a different way and be positive about it. So when we set up in Malaysia, we did it exactly the same way as we did it in Singapore. Yeah, that's how stupid we are. One of them's a Muslim country, one of them's a fintech center. So we learned our lesson there 8 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to one word, is trust. How much trust exists in your culture? There are some cultures that are high trust cultures that enable people to have arm's length transactions with people they may not know very well, and look at data and be able to make a decision. Other cultures, people don't even trust their blood relatives, unless the money is sitting on the table and they've got their hand on it. And so it really just depends on the culture. And the trust is the key thing.
Mm-hmm. Maurizio, what's happening in Italy right now?
What's happening in Italy right now with the crowdfunding, we have some small, I'd say it's happening just exactly. I think 1 + 1, that's the right answers. So I totally agree. It's a trust culture, and then it's a generation. So what happens in Italy? It's not much different than what's happening in Belgium, because it's the culture you have to invest. You can invest in the crowdfunding if you have a community which is already investing with the angel investing, that you already have the venture capital. I don't know how many venture capital are based in Belgium or AngelList but if the crowdfunding it's for equity, it's for startup, you need to have the culture to invest in the startup. So if you're going to see in Italy, it's not strong about that because we lack about the community of venture capital and the angel investor. So if you're going to have the crowdfunding to fund the startup, that cannot be so successful. But the crowdsource or the crowdfunding like Indiegogo or to buy products, it's doing well. So that's why he says also generations. So the culture, but I need to see the next generation, always.
One of the big problems that we've got in Italy, we're talking to the Italian government, but in Italy, that's a big problem. But one of the big problems is that in Italy, every respectable company will have 3 sets of accounts. They'll have the accounts they give to the tax people. They've got the accounts that they're going to file. Unbelievably, they're going to be different. And then there's the real accounts. So then you're an equity crowdfunding company, and you're coming along going, I want 203,000 euros for an 18% stake. In which business? Which of those valuations is it somewhere along the line? Ever so slightly skews the problem.
The other problem I've seen in Italy is the fact that the regulation is set up so that you have to be a high-tech company. You have to have a certain number of PhDs on your board. It's just way overly regulated.
You cannot do crowdfunding with such caveats in the regulatory. On the people, the attitude.
For a founder, of course, crowdfunding is seriously hard work. Is it, from a VC perspective, is it worth the burden? Because it's easier to raise.
VCs are not going to look at the tiny little businesses down there because VCs can't give the mentorship and the contacts that they do. And similarly, the deal size, the average deal size in the UK is £470,000. VCs ain't going to look at that unless they're stupid. Anyway, is it worth it? I think when we tried equity crowdfunding and we it was so much work up front. You have to get your accounts, you have to prepare the questions in there, you have to do the video. And for an entrepreneur who's actually running his business and actually just wants to get on with running his business, that's a ball ache. It really is incredible. Just the amount of work you have to do up front to put it on the platform. You probably have to have raised 36% of the cash already to be allowed on many of the platforms. So is it easier to have other mechanisms, not VCs? It could be easier, but then your heartache is going to come after they've done it, and then they're going to ask all the questions after. So I think it probably is easier to raise alternative amounts of funding, but that's going to have to change.
How many in the audience have successfully raised money from a VC or a private equity fund? Right. Was it easy? Exactly. It's hard. It's damn hard to raise money anytime. Raising money for a business is one of the most difficult things you can do, period, full stop. Disagree on that one too, Bill?
Oh yeah, no, totally. So when
all I'm saying it's really hard. And so you have to. So there are just different ways to do a really difficult thing. And there's no easy way to raise money, and crowdfunding is certainly not easy. I've raised money through private equity, angel investors, private venture capital, and through crowdfunding. And they're all hard, and they're all hard in different ways. And it just depends on where you'd like to experience the pain, which part of the body. But it's all going to be painful.
So we see 400 angels a day with 390,000 euros of spare cash come to the site. Raising capital for the 110 businesses we see every day is they report the most difficult thing. It's not. We don't dissuade them of that. It's not. It's not easy. Jason's absolutely right for once. No, once a day. No. But he's right. It's not easy, but it's not the most difficult thing you guys are going to do if you're looking to raise capital. The most difficult thing you're going to do is integrate your technology. The most difficult thing you're going to do is keep the company together. Raising the money, I mean, we've never seen so much money. 400 people with 390,000 euros. I mean, there's no shortage of cash. Go on equity crowdfunding sites, you'll get it with a half-baked business and a ridiculous valuation. Raising the money, it's not easy, but it's not the most difficult thing you'll ever do.
Maurizio, we have to close because we're out of time.
So,
do you want to add something?
As you said, raising money for the business is very difficult. I think the VC, there is the intermediation of expert people. So it's difficult to raise money because they don't invest in all the startup they meet. So they're going to make a selection, but also the team, the people, they do a lot for the startup in terms of mentorship, they assist, they help create a presentation, especially once they decide to invest the money. With the platform, all these works has to be made by the platform management. Because we have people, it's like when you're going to buy into the e-commerce, you know? You need to find a very good platform that show very well the products. You need that you can have a very good customer service, and then you buy the product there because you can send the product back. This is exactly the same. So, but the problem is, it's a company. So you put the money, and you're not just donating the money. So that's going to be always difficult. And with the crowdfunding, it's going to have even much more competition. So maybe he raised the money, I raised the money, he raised the money, but everybody just a little. So I think it's just evolution.
Okay. Maybe just before lunch, do we have questions from the audience? Because we do have an interesting panel here. So the gentleman over there was first.
It's all the way up there.
Do we have a mic? Yes.
And that's lunch.
Hi. The thing I heard coming back is the thing VC brings to the table is curation, but it kind of makes you people very special with your abilities. But isn't the fact that we're going to have a lot more data available to everybody a bigger problem for VCs than crowdfunding, because then we will be able to make better models, and then those platforms will kind of take the curation and the modeling behind it. And I think that's more, it's not really crowdfunding, but it's the fact that everything comes together and is available for everybody, and or maybe not. Just a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be careful not to get hung up on the word crowdfunding and putting it in a box that exists exactly today, or in the donation and reward space, and that's being crowdfunding. And I think that because in 5 years, we're not going to talk about crowdfunding anymore. It's just going to be funding. It's just going to be, we're just not going to, it's like people don't talk about, buying an airplane ticket is, I'm going to go to the World Wide Web and buy an airplane ticket, instead of going to my travel agent, right? I mean, you just buy an airplane ticket. And the same thing's going to be true with investing, because we're going to create new tools that allow, to your point, allow more data to be available in a more easily consumed way for more people to make better decisions.
Bill?
I refer us all back to Joanne's speech earlier, and I think that's kind of that's what they say in lots of big crowdfunding platforms, that you get the wisdom of the crowd. But I'm looking at least 80% of the UK platforms deals will fail. I'm not saying that's wise. And especially if you're all getting your information from much the same place, or the company tells you where to go and get the information, and everybody's Googling whatever. But people don't tend to do that. There's different motivations in terms of crowdfunding. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. But, at the moment, my take on equity crowdfunding in the UK is that it's a very good way to lose a whole bunch of people's money. And then you learn those lessons and you go and get sensible funding.
Okay. Do we have time for one more question?
Wrap up?
No?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Bill, Jason, and Maurizio, can we give them a round of applause, please?
Thank you.